I'm going to talk about why good coaches struggle to find clients. Um, I'm going to do a live stream every day this week at 9 a.m. and I'm going to cover a different topic on each of those days, but all of them will be to do with client acquisition as opposed to coaching. So let me start by explaining something that I think a lot of coaches struggle with. Now, I'm basing this on the fact that I spend all day, every day talking to coaches, and I have done for the last nearly 9 years. And the part that we don't seem to have grasped is that, or that many of us don't seem to have grasped, is that every single business in the world has to have two skill sets in equal measure in order to be a viable business, a profitable business. So, in fact, let me be more specific. To be a business, you have to have clients. If you don't have clients, you have a hobby, not a business. And I know that can be really hard to hear. And I'm sorry if I'm talking to you, but if I am, then this live stream is really for you. So back to what I was saying. All businesses have to have two skill sets in equal measure to be able to become a viable business. And those two skill sets are like, if you imagine them as old-fashioned weighing scales. On one side of the weighing scale sits our product or service. So in our case, that's our coaching skills. Now, some people might have an actual product that they sell, others sell, like us, sell professional services. Let's now narrow down to specifically a coaching business. On this side of the scale, if you have your original coaching qualification and then a more advanced coaching qualification, and then maybe some practitioner certificates and maybe some personality profiling qualifications, and maybe, I mean, you could have a master's, you could have a PhD in coaching. I can go on and on and on. All of those qualifications sit on this side of these scales. These are our delivery skills. And it doesn't matter how many of them you have on that side of your business, they are not client acquisition skills. On the other side of our scale sit the skills that we need to create the opportunities to do that delivery. And unless you have both of these skills in equal measure, you're going to really struggle. Now, the often quoted statistic is that 82% of coaching businesses fail in the first 2 years. Now, that's, 4 out of 5 of us fail not as coaches, but to build coaching businesses. So what's happening to the other 1 in 5? What's going on with that kind of 20%, 18 to 20% who are succeeding? Why are they succeeding when the rest of us are not? There are 3 reasons why they are. They're probably not all succeeding at building businesses per se, because some of those coaches will be internal coaches. Some of them will be coaches who just do associate coaching, and that's fine. If that's what you want your business to look like, that's fine. And some of them will be coaches who have what I call monetizable credibility. Shout out to Claire Pedrick for coming up with that phrase. What I mean by monetizable credibility is that these coaches are people who come to coach training and they already have a stellar reputation, usually built through decades of a corporate career. Now, what I mean by a stellar reputation is that these coaches already have a group of people who know, like, and trust them, and often who are senior enough to be budget holders and in a position to commission coaching from them. Now, these monetizable credibility people can open their little black book of these connections that they've made over however many decades, and they can go and have conversations with the people in their book. Remember that the people they're having conversations with already know, like, and trust them, already think they're great, already know that they're capable human beings, and now they have another string to their bow, basically. Crucially, these contacts also often know what our kind of coaching is. Those monetizable credibility coaches are small in number when we look at the overall number of coaches being trained, but they are a large percentage of people who build successful coaching businesses. Now, there is a very famous book that says if you just lift up your eyes and look around you, you will see all the clients that you ever need, and that you just have to have really good conversations, good coaching conversations, and that if you do, then you will find all the clients that you need. Now, how's that going for you for a start? Because I know it can be extraordinarily difficult, and it can be very demoralizing when you're having conversation after conversation after conversation. And occasionally you might pick up a client. Often, and again, this is based on the conversations that I have with coaches, they're often clients who pay mates rates, so they're not paying a professional fee. But for those of us who don't have the little black book, finding enough of those people to talk to can be very challenging. Now, part of the reason why it can be very challenging is that as coaches, we have a problem that no other professional service has. I did a senior moment there. Did you see that? Midlife woman moment. So the problem that we have that no other professional service provider has is that nobody knows what we do, but they think they know, and they're wrong. And the reason they think they know and they're wrong is because the word coach had an existing meaning before we took it over. So we use the word coach to mean something completely different to the zeitgeist. So when we talk to people about being a coach, they think they know what we do. They think that we're going to share our knowledge and experience with them in order to basically mentor them to a position that we have held that they want to be in. Now, part of the reason that we love coaching so much, or some of us love coaching so much, is that you don't need to know anything at all about somebody in order to be able to coach them effectively. That's what we're taught, and it's absolutely true. However, if we look at these two sides of the weighing scale, on this side of the weighing scale, we don't need to know anything about someone in order to be able to coach them. On this side of the weighing scale, where we're working on client acquisition, we absolutely do need to know something about them in order to be able to market to them. Client acquisition skills, by the way, are predominantly sales and marketing skills. And I know that our profession, to a great extent, has a very poor view of marketing. And that's a real shame because it's holding us back. To market well, you don't have to make outlandish promises. In fact, making outlandish promises is unethical. You don't have to make guarantees. You don't have to do anything that doesn't sit with our ethical values. Now, one of the conversations I have reasonably often with coaches, and again, let's go back to these two sides of the weighing scale, they'll say to me, I've been reading the ICF Code of Ethics or the Global Code of Ethics, and I don't see how I can market ethically at all, because the codes of ethics say that I must not have a vested interest in the outcome of the conversation. That in order to stay ethical, I mustn't have a vested interest. But when I am on this side of the weighing scale, when I am trying to actively find a client, I absolutely do have a vested interest in the outcome of this conversation because I want a client and I cannot make those two things marry. And I just find that really distressing. And so I'm not doing anything to do with marketing because I cannot do it ethically. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And the reason that you can is that the ICF Code of Ethics and the Global Code of Ethics sit on this side of your business, on the delivery side of your business. Now, that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be ethics on this side of your business, because there absolutely should. And there is, in fact, a code of ethics for marketing for coaches. And I know that because I wrote it. And if you would like a copy of it, you can go to thecoachingrevolution.com and you will find it there. Now, let's leave ethical marketing for another day. Just let me reassure you that ethical marketing is not only a thing, it's the most important thing. And it is entirely possible to market ethically. So if I say to somebody, what outcome can your client reasonably expect from working with you? They will say, well, it depends. It depends who they are. It depends what they want. It depends how committed they are to the coaching process. It depends whether or not they take their actions that they agree. I can't possibly tell you. It depends. And that's because when we're sitting on this side of the scales and we have clients that are sort of put in front of us, if you like, then the answer to what outcome can they reasonably expect is absolutely, it depends. Now, the reason that outcomes are so important is that people don't buy processes. We buy outcomes. All of us, you, me, everybody, we buy outcomes. We buy the result. And how many times have you had this conversation? Oh, what do you do? I'm a coach. Oh, really? What do you coach on? Oh, no, not that kind of coach. Oh, what kind of coach? And then we go down a rabbit hole of trying to describe the coaching process. I'm going to listen to you really carefully. I'm going to listen to what you don't say as well as what you do say. I'll ask really good questions to make you think. I'll help you reach your own conclusion. Like, that's the process. That's our stuff. What a potential client needs to know is what's in it for them. Why should they pay you a professional rate to be coached by you? Now, the only way that they will understand why they might want to pay you a professional rate is if they know that you get it. You get the problem that they're struggling with, and you absolutely understand why it's such a biggie for them. Now, remember, we're not on the delivery side of our business. We're on the creating the opportunities to do the delivery side of the business. On this side of our businesses, we need to be really focused. And this is something that coaches really struggle with. They really, really, really struggle with it. When I ask them who they work with, they'll say professionals. Well, what does that mean? Where are you going to find these professionals? Who are they? Or they'll say people navigating transitions. Okay, that's the problem that they're struggling with, but who are they? And the reason that knowing the what, the thing that they're struggling with, as well as the who, as in who are they, you need both of those to be able to effectively market a coaching business. Professionals doesn't mean anything except to us. If you had 1,000 people in a room and you said, for example, hands up if anybody has the job title professional, nobody's going to put a hand up. That's not how people identify themselves. So when I say you need a who, I mean you need a really specific who. And so a target audience, a focus or a target audience, and the other word for a target audience is niche, sits at the intersection between the who and the what. Where those two things cross is where we should focus our attention. Now, choosing that focus, and it is a choice, it's not something that's going to magically reveal itself to you over time, although I know plenty of us are told if we just coach enough people, our niche will reveal itself. Again, I would say, how's that going for you? Because unless you have that monetizable credibility, chances are it won't. Or if it does, it's going to take a long, long time. So choosing that intersection, and it is a deliberate choice, is something that coaches really struggle with. They really, really, really struggle with it. And I have something that will help you do that. The 7th to the 10th of November, no, the 7th to the 10th of September, I am running my now somewhat famous Nail Your Niche challenge. It's a 4-day free challenge. It doesn't involve all day, every day over the 4 days. There is a concept video that's dropped every day at 7 a.m. UK. There is a Q&A thread, and there is a task set every day. And there is a thread to put your the outcome of your task, so your homework basically. And then at 5 p.m. every day, I do a live session where I answer all the questions in the Q&A thread and whatever other questions come up between with the people who are on the live with me. Why do I think you should come? If you think you have a niche, drop me a DM and tell me what it is. Now, last time I said that, somebody said, "Oh, I have my niche sorted. It's alcohol addiction issues." And I said, "Great. And who is the individual that has this?" Don't know. So you don't have a niche, you have a what, but not a who. Somebody else said it's people navigating transitions. And I said, which transitions? And they said, any transitions. And I said, you don't have a niche. You have a vague what, but you don't have a who. Now, this challenge has been described as the best value challenge that anyone could ever take if you're a coach. And I would strongly recommend it. It's fun. And that's, I think, something that we as a profession struggle to realize, that the work that we do on this side of our business can be just as enjoyable as the work that we do here, providing we're doing it well. So, why do good coaches struggle to find clients? Because they don't have client acquisition skills. And all businesses must have a client acquisition process that's better than hope. I hope this happens. Hope is not a client acquisition strategy. So they need to have a strong client acquisition process that works. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 9.